Hi, it's David Liew here. Another rheumatoid arthritis update. Looked at some of the really interesting abstracts that have come through on the poster floor about computer vision. This is something that we've seen a lot more of in recent years, and I bet we'll see more and more of that as time goes on. What is computer vision? So basically, in simple terms, it's AI looking at images and trying to see whether computers can help better identify changes in images. How might this be useful to us in rheumatoid arthritis? Well, we're going to become dependent on telehealth. And the issue with telehealth being that we can't palpate the joints of the patients on the other side of the video. And what we'd ideally like to do is be able to take the images or video that comes through and be able to take that and try and get a sense of whether we've got swollen joints in rheumatoid arthritis patients. So firstly, the first abstract is 0402, which looks at still images of hands and tries to see whether we can better quantify joint swelling on that image. And that's cute in itself because it looks at the creases, tries to make sure that the computer can track exactly where the joint boundaries are and estimates the swelling that's on the actual image. Where's the problem with that? Well, we don't know how that picture maps out to actual joint swelling itself that we might see on something like MRI, how that relates to actual inflammation inside of a joint, whether that's osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis or a little bit of both, and what that really means prognostically in terms of disease activity. So I think that we've got some big gaps there. Now, there have been some other data that have tried to fill in some of those gaps, and we saw some stuff from Bill and Meta from the Hospital of Special Surgery, RheumNow correspondent, to fill in some of those blanks with that. But we need to see, every time an algorithm comes through, we need to see those extra steps. Something that's a little bit further advanced is abstract 1293, and that looks at, from some of the same investigators, looks at a different algorithm, looking at computer vision with video, and gets people to move a hand and see whether that can help to match up to things like DAS28. And actually we saw some really nice correlations with swollen joint count and DAS28 by getting people to move their hands in front of a camera and calculate how that might correlate the actual movement of the joints, how that might compare to disease activity. I think that's definitely a step in the right direction, but there are still some gaps. That doesn't mean that it's ready for prime time right now, because we'll hear a lot about this. How do we know that this isn't something that we should be adopting straight away, throwing right into clinical practice? Well, we need to first of all know that this is validated beyond the initial derivation set, that we see this in other groups. And potentially, we need to be alert to things like biases. Is this something that predicts disease activity in this specific group of patients? Does that mean I can translate it to all patients? And really, it's entirely possible that there might need to be some retraining involved with that as well. And then really, that clinical evaluation process where we put this in a randomized control trial way and test this out to see whether it really does actually correlate with disease activity, that is what we need. That kind of prospective validation. So these are all the kind of, and seeing how, in fact, that works into our normal clinical workflows, because the kind of things that we have to worry about may not necessarily come out in those initial clinical trials anyway. We're going to see more of this computer vision stuff in the future. Basically, I think it behooves us all to really try and get our head around some of the basics so we don't necessarily, well, we can understand what's being said to a basic level and really put the right level of skepticism on top of it. We've got a review that came out in ANR last year, which goes through a few of these methods, but I think there's plenty of great resources out there now to try and understand this fast-moving space. For plenty more on all the updates here from ACR 2023, head on down to rheumnow.com.